Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and it's great to be here, and I enjoy working with the nice folks at Summit. And even though sometimes it involves, if you look at me, I did bring a clean shirt, but I came straight from work. I operate, the only thing missing in my bio is that I own and operate Renegade Gardener Landscaping. I'm based in Excelsior, and we specialize in landscape renovation and custom stonework, and it's May, and we're out working. So I was working on the job site in Golden Valley today, doing a residential landscape renovation, and then I was mindful of leaving right at 3:30 because I didn't want to be late. And at 3:30, the heavens opened up, so it was good timing. If I'd known it was going to be this fancy a party, I would have bathed, but I didn't work too hard today, so I think we should be all right. Favorite talk of mine, top 10 gardening and landscaping blunders, and what I try to do in this talk, I am now entering into my 30th year as a gardener, and this talk is sort of designed to help fast forward some of you through the typical steep learning curve. 3 important criteria in order to be on my current top 10 gardening and landscaping blunder list. Number 1, it must be a common blunder. It must be the same mistake that I see all across the country as I travel. Number 2, it must be a major blunder. It must impart true gruesome effect on your yard or your ability to grow a healthy plant. But number 3, and most important, it must be a blunder. It must be a mistake that I have made 2, if not 3, or even 5 times in my 30 years of gardening. So we will blow through them now. Join in, sing along, the top 10 gardening, landscaping blunders and how to avoid them. Number 10, we think too small. What is thinking too small? Thinking too small is when you look out over your property and regardless of lot size, homeowners have a tendency to break it down into little individual areas. I want to do something out here by the mailbox. I'm going to create some landscaped area in the sunny spot against the fence. I want to do something up here by the front of the house. We think too small. Thinking too small leads to problems. Projects like cutting circles in our yards and plunking things in them. Or else you take a look at this and you say, ooh, you know, I don't like to work that hard. To heck with cutting the circle. I just want a wishing well. You know, Dolores has a wishing well. I want a wishing well. We want to grow our plants right here. So again, we're big into cutting circles here down where the driveway meets the street. Cut a circle out of the lawn and then boom, there's my flower garden. We create what I call little pocket gardens. These little disjointed, unrelated, floating areas of landscape. We circle trees with stuff. Uniquely American landscape behavior. We have a tree in the yard. We can't leave it well enough alone. We always feel like it needs some ornamentation or little boulders or concrete retaining wall block or something circling the tree. And I can't blame the homeowners for the advent of tree circles. This is a professional landscaper. Landscaper came in, put in the curving foundation bed, planned the tree, can't leave it well enough alone. So we take a look at this and we say, well, that's landscaping. This is not landscaping. This is vandalism. We'll have the tree in the yard. We go to Menards, we buy the little tombstone thingies, and we give it the little skirt, and then we dump it full of white rock. I love it. White rock. I don't think white rock is indigenous to Earth. I think the aliens bring it in their spacecraft. I think it's the byproduct of some intergalactic mining project. And as you know, they're hauling all this white rock, and they go, "Hey, you know what? You can dump it on Earth. You know, it'll lighten your load." The Earthlings, they spread it around their yard. I shoot tree circles as a hobby. This is a double in Denver. If you see what happens here, particularly for trees in yards, is it completely annexes the tree from the landscape. I have no problem with deciduous trees, an evergreen tree, but typically we'd think about a deciduous trunk tree rising up from the lawn as it's multiple trees. As you gaze at that lawn, it flows. Okay, we got trees growing up out of the grass. As soon as we start giving them the little Wilma rubble necklaces, the little boulders and the thing, completely annexes them from the landscape. Now they're just these individual, unrelated features. Now I don't want to spend too much time on it, and I don't want to give you a hard time or make you think that, you know, we're not hip here in the Midwest because we use tree circles. The hipness has nothing to do with it. You can go to the hippest city in America, Los Angeles, California, and you will see tree circles. Now, do you see how this poor little palm, it's completely annexed from the landscape. But here's the interesting thing. You know, here's obviously the entrance. My laser pointer, I was trying to impress the guy because I'm smart enough to know that you need a green laser pointer for a flat screen TV because a red one doesn't show up. But this is some new generation. This is, they've outdone me. So my laser, even my special flat screen TV laser pointer doesn't beat this thing. So anyway, if I can simply you see how it exists on another planet. It's absolutely in no way part of the landscape. Why didn't they plant another shrub here and here and here and pull the bed out and incorporate the tree into the design? In other words, that's always a much better way to deal with mature trees. If you have mature trees on the property, let's say you've got a tree in the side yard and there's a neighbor's fence or something. You know, don't just give it a little tree circle. Let's plant the shrub, plant the fence with a shrub line, broad sweeping, swing out, incorporate the tree into the design. Here they've got mature trees. They've pulled the bed line off of the patio, swung it around, planted it with perennials. If you have a tree in the middle of a large lawn and you'd like to eat up some lawn, create what's called an island bed. Again, tree and lawn, you don't want to give it a little circle. The Masters was on not long ago. Think in terms of putting greens. Let's pull a bed away from that tree, curve down, broad curves, you know, the artist's palette shape or the kidney bean. Swing it back down here, come up. Now you've got room to plant some shrubs, some perennials, maybe some tall grasses, maybe some boulder outcroppings. Might be a nice place for a bench. You've created an island bed that happens to have a tree in it. Blunder 9, we think too straight. When we're doing our own landscape design, homeowners have a tendency to let the straight lines of the house foundation, sidewalks, driveways, fences, the street, we let that dictate our design. But landscapers can do it too. Here's home construction. Side yard, full sun. I mean, the world is your oyster in terms of the plant palette. Here's obviously the street. And the landscaper has come in and planted 15 lilac bushes in a soldier straight row. Well, why straight? Why couldn't this bed have curved and had some movement and some flow to it? Why one type of plant material? You know, lilacs, we all love lilacs. You close your eyes right now, on my deathbed I will be able to smell lilacs. We all know that lovely smell. But they bloom in the spring, and then that's about it. They don't have particularly attractive summer foliage. They have absolutely no fall leaf color. In the winter, as this grows up, this just becomes a big gray wall of sticks. Where are the evergreens? Where are the lovely pyramidal arborvitaes and the smaller, there are even dwarf pines, smaller junipers, that beautiful blue rug juniper that you could have done. Why one type of deciduous shrub? Why not some spring blooming shrubs? Perhaps some lilac shrub or two. But what about, midsummer blooming shrubs and, the whitelia and ninebarks and various foliage colors. What about fall leaf color? Dwarf burning bush, Euonymus alatus. There's a beautiful dwarf burning bush, turns vibrant red. The viburnums, which turn red. Shrubs such as Fothergilla that just explode with all sorts of colors. In other words, this could have been a curving, naturalized, mixed, evergreen, deciduous swath of nature instead of 15 lilac bushes in a soldier straight row. Make your garden curve, particularly your foundation beds around the house. This is a lovely home. I did not do this home. This was one that we found, though, and we photographed it, and it appeared in Better Homes and Gardens. For 10 years, I was a field editor and garden scout for Better Homes and Gardens and wrote quite a bit for them. Lovely home in St. Paul, small city lot. The landscaper came in. The original landscape was that straight line, 30-inch wide. That's how wide they went, 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. You can still see them in the cities. It'll be 30 inches. I don't even have to put a tape measure down on it. If the landscape has never been renovated, it was 30 inches. Just enough to put a little tight tutu of shrubs all the way around. So this straight line, 30-inch foundation bed coming out. Then the house turns right. The black plastic edging turns right. It runs right down the side of the house. So the landscaper came in, tore all of that out, pulled the bed out to the front of the stoop, which makes nothing but sense. We'll talk about concept lines in a minute, but now instead of the bed coming out here with a 90-degree angle of turf grass, the line runs all the way across the front. Pulled the front of the bed out, which is a great thing to do in smaller city lots because you often don't have a lot of side yard leverage. So let's, and what? The front yards are often quite small. Pulled this out. Now he can put his clump tree, perennials. They did have the old-fashioned straight, too narrow concrete sidewalk, ran straight out the front door, hit the city sidewalk at a T. They tore that out, put in a nice curved concrete paver pathway. But I love this, where the sidewalk branches off and it narrows. The slide doesn't represent it quite well enough. It does narrow quite a bit. Now it goes around to the side of the house, to the side door, then it proceeds to this beautiful backyard. You notice that they pulled this point of perennials. They pulled it out and they jumped the sidewalk. We'll see that again in just a second. This bed is dictated by the sidewalk interruption, so they jump the sidewalk. It balances the overall design, and it also affords you the opportunity, as you branch off to the right to go around the side of the house, you enter into the landscape. Certainly ample use of turf grass, but a very, very nice, charming foundation planting in a small city lot based on broad, natural curves. I do a lot of custom stonework in my business. This is an 88-foot long, 5-foot wide New York pattern bluestone entryway we did quite a few years ago in Chanhassen, Minnesota. This was new home construction. And here's how I laid it out. At no point did I draw this on paper. Complete waste of my time, waste of the client's money. I simply stood here at the top of the client's driveway and I gazed up this very gentle grade. That's the front door at the top, secondary entrance, and then I put in a utility path because there's a 3-car garage right here. And there are times when the homeowner's going to want to walk out of the garage and take a right. But I simply stood here and with my eye, I gazed up to the stoop. I'm just trying to find the river. Where's the naturally occurring, simply broadly flowing river that arches down, widens at my feet? And then I laid out this walkway, literally the same way you homeowners can lay out all of your own gardens. If you get inspired and you're going to bounce out your foundation beds, if you want to circle a tree in a lawn and make a nice large island bed, I lay out most of my designs using nothing but 50 and 100-foot lengths of a good 3/4-inch supple rope. And I had 100-foot ropes, and I just brought them down. Or you can use what? Garden hose, rubber garden hose. But it must be rubber. It must be the black or the burnt red rubber hose. You can't use your old cast-off green plastic ones because they won't give you that broad, beautiful sweep. And you think in terms of kidneys, not intestines. All right? We're broad. So I had it with rope because I could see it, and I could judge it, and I could move it, and I could make it curve a little more here, and I could walk up to the top and look down it. You know, the books all tell you if you're going to do it yourself, get out the graph paper, measure your house, measure your property. Now you got to measure every tree from 2 different points, draw it out. You know, is it going to be 1/4-inch scale? Is it going to be 1/8-inch scale? Did you go to school for any of this? No, of course not. I say do it with ropes because you're walking on the graph paper. You know, 1 foot equals 1 foot. There's your house. You can take a beautiful sweeping rope line or a hose line, and you can stand back and you can say, well, you know, I heard about this northern bell magnolia, and I'd really love to have that a proper distance away from the corner of my house. but in the foundation bed. And, you know, let's pull it out to 10 feet. You can change it. You can play with it. So I simply laid it out with ropes. Then you go to the hardware store, you buy your upside-down ground marking spray paint, and you just, once you've got it where you like it, you just spray paint right along the rope. So I actually painted the walkway in when I had it where I wanted to. Then we pulled the ropes. My crew and I did the excavation. Then we installed all the compacted gravel base. Then we laid the stone. I did the final cuts on the stone. And I knew when we finished this in the fall, I knew when I came back in the spring, we'd be well on our way to a successful landscape because I had the river right. And I based it on broad, natural curve. All right, blunder 8. We're afraid to cut down a tree or yank out old shrubs. Man, are we afraid to cut down trees in America today. Or trim them. You're exactly right. Somehow, I don't know, we think that the deforestation of the Brazilian rainforest, you know, somehow relates to the stupid spruce tree that the previous homeowner planted 6 feet from the corner of the house. The two do not relate. We're reversing farmland. We are developing now farmland where the trees were cut down. We are now developing it into housing. And every city has dictates, must be planting X number of trees. We are planting more trees across America now than any time in our history. Don't be afraid to cut down a tree that is old, just a complete litter bug, diseased, storm damaged, improperly pruned, you know, but ugly. Or don't be afraid to cut down seed or weed trees. Anybody have any maples? It's going to be quite a year for maples. You get bad years for acorns, you get bad years for the maple whirlies. I think this is a bad year for both of them. I've got a client in St. Paul, just off of Summit Avenue, and I got to send a guy over there next week because I think we have 685 maple trees currently getting ready to grow on his city lot. So what do? You pluck them. They're growing out of the maples and the acorns, the oak trees. They're growing out of your compost bin. They're in the cracks in the sidewalk. They're all throughout your perennial beds. You can't let 320 trees grow up. But here's two that should have been plucked. These are seed trees. Weed trees, seed trees. They were allowed to grow up by the homeowner. They're growing up into a full harsh tree canopy. They are already thin, spindly, malnourished trees. They're never going to make it. What's the best thing to do? Take the chainsaw, give them what we call the ultimate prune. The story here. This was an area, lovely neighborhood of Minneapolis, and it was a smaller home that was purchased by the couple, and it was a teardown. So they tore the old house down and they built their fancy schmancy mansion. Now, I took this photo 6 years after that big house was built. And I can just hear the guy saying to the builder, oh, now be careful, you know, when you build my house, I don't want to lose those nice spruce trees. Well, look at this poor old thing. Been pruned up and up and up and up and up and up. That's a variety called Minnesota palm. And you may have one on your property. Look at this one. Disease, damage, needle drop. These are sickly, dying trees. Now, here's what will happen. 6 more years will go by. The homeowner will wake up on a Saturday, and these will either be dead or there'll be such a storm liability, he'll go, oh gosh, I guess I better cut those trees down. 6 plus 6, he just lost 12 years of tree growth because he was afraid to cut down a tree. What should he have done? He should have cut those dogs out when he built his house. You can grind the stumps, you can do proper root removal. We could have come in with 6, 8, or 10 foot brand new spruce pine. There are so many unbelievable new varieties. This is the golden age of landscaping in Zone 4, Minnesota. There are hemlocks, there are pines, there are spruce, there are firs, varieties unknown to us 15 years ago. Gorgeous trees, 30, 40, 50-foot evergreens that only get 12 feet wide, 15 feet wide. We could have come in with new spruce, trees that you can plant 8, 10 feet from a house. We could have come in with 8-footers. 12 years later, he's got 18, 20-foot gorgeous evergreens in front of his house. He lost 12 years of tree growth because he was afraid to cut down a tree. Same thing goes with shrubs. Folks, just because the thing came with the joint doesn't mean it deserves a place in your landscape. Deciduous shrubs, they get old. They get woody. They get overgrown. 25, 30 years. That's a nice run for a deciduous shrub. People will live in a house, they will remodel the kitchen twice before it ever occurs to them to go out and rip out and remodel the landscape. The evergreens, the arborvitaes, the junipers, the yews, they get old. You know, learning pruning, and I'll plug my website at the end, but you know, there's a lot of good articles on pruning and learning how to care and shear, but old doggy shrubs, I'll tell you the problem with a lot of these blooming shrubs and the spirea and the lilacs and stuff, they're 40 years old. They're 35 years old. They were planted in full sun. What happened? Your tree canopy grew up. They're growing in shade now. They're not going to bloom. They're just going to slowly lose more and more vitality. You know, you can give them all the hard coppicing you want to try to create a new shrub, but they are not going to make it. Tear these things out. Blunder 7, we devote too much space to lawn in America, and we never used to. The 20s, the 30s, the 40s, if you look at American, you know, societal evolution, a majority of us lived in the city. You know, that's where those were all, and they remain to be population centers. And we had small city lots. And we devoted no more than 40%, maybe 50% of that property was devoted to turf grass. What happened? The 1950s, the great suburbanization of America. We fled the cities. We created the suburbs. And all of a sudden you could be a landowner. You know, you could buy a quarter acre, half an acre, 1 acre, even 2 acres of land. So now that we were gentry, we got sold on this idea that you circle your house on all 4 sides with turf grass, which had never happened in the history of the world before. The English did not have vast rolling lawns. If you look back at Victorian eras in the 1800s and the great manors, grass was used as pathways. It was used as the mat of the painting. You couldn't afford the upkeep on a lawn. They did not surround their estates with mass lawns, but we decided to do that in America. It gets to the point now, a typical suburban lot, let's say it's half an acre. The house is plunked down in the middle, 1960s or 1970s, the landscaper comes in, gives it, you know, maybe a 3-foot wide, straight line foundation bed. If you grow grass on all 4 sides of your house, you're always going to have that shady side yard, or maybe it's the shady backyard where you can't get the grass to grow, but we try. Now maybe the lot has got something. You got a beautiful big a red pine in the back corner, lovely old tree that you want to take care of. Maybe there's a beautiful oak or a giant red maple in the back corner. You know, you might want to never cut it down. You might want to throw $800 at it, get it pruned up and cleaned up every 15 years. Maybe there's another oak. Maybe you've planted an ornamental tree or a crabapple. But we love the house, we love the neighborhood, we love the school district, and so we start gardening. So again, here we're all the way back to blunder number 10. You know, cut a circle in the air, boom, fill it up with, you know, zinnias or something equally dreadful. Now we're gonna start expanding into perennials. I eyeball that little sunny spot against the neighbor's fence, and then boom, there's my perennial garden. We board it up on top of the potter's clay that we want to have, and we plant a few shrubs. We circle the little light pole, that little black light pole you have out in front. You know, it's that gas light. It looks like it's gas. It's actually electric. You turn it on and off at the front door. I circled my first black pole with Red Hot Sally salvia. It's a nice little pole circle, thus annexing it from the landscape. The child arrives, the kids come, swing set, PlayStation, it goes in the backyard. Is that where your swing set is, in the backyard? Yeah, that's a good place for it. That's functional. We want to think safety, security, but it rises right up out of the lawn along with the bench or the bird bath or the wishing well, so that now when we're out mowing the lawn, we have to come back with the weed whacker or the hand trimmer and trim around all these disparate objects rising up out of the turf grass. So we look at ourselves after 15, 20 years and we say, you know, why ain't it happening? What's the blunder here? Well, the blunder is too high a percentage of turf grass. Now this is 2/3 lawn. I love a client that'll have me eat it all up, and we have a project going on in Summit, near Summit right now, Lincoln Avenue in St. Paul, where the couple, they said, we don't want any lawn at all. So we're landscaping the front yard and backyard, you know, sans lawn, which is nice. But here, the difference here, if I put them side by side, the difference here is we've established the concept lines. In landscape design, the concept line is the line that your eye sees and follows when it gazes at a landscape. Your house footprint is a concept line. Your driveway is a concept line. The sidewalk from your driveway that curves around to your front door is a concept line. Fences are always prominent, strong concept lines. However, the concept line that takes over, the concept line that is most readily and agreeably gazed at by the human eye is the line created by the edging material that differentiates a lawn area from a planting area. And that's the line that you control. That's the line that you dictate with your hope, I was going to say it, hopes and roses, with your rope or your hose. All right, so you see, the concept line was there all along. And again, my laser pointer has failed me, but so we go out to the back, we say, okay, I got a beautiful big spruce in back. I can't grow grass around it, but it gets some morning sun. There's some things. I can do some hydrangeas in the corner. Maybe I have enough sunlight for dogwoods if I burn them. So I'm going to drop my rope down and we'll swing it around, and then I'm going to curve it out just a little bit. Now you get into that big shady area where you can't get the grass to grow. If you can't get the grass to grow there, two things for you. You're putting in a shade garden, and it's going to be the most beautiful part of your property. And you're putting in a stepping stone pathway. All right? So we're going to put in a stepping stone pathway, and now I can plant kind of a more shade respondent understory tree, a hydrangea tree, or a pagoda dogwood, and I'll fill this area up with more shade conducive shrubs, maybe a woodland garden or a hostaglate. Now you come back out into your sunny hot yard. Remember our perennial garden? It's still there. It's just that it's the continuation of the concept line that allows a landscape to segue and to flow through from a shady area and transition into a sun area. Over here, you wanted a little garden as you enter on the street. Well, don't just cut a circle. Let's drop your hose down on the property line, swing it out, or let's go all the way up to the crabapple. It turned out you planted that in a cool spot. Let's just invite it into the party and swing it down. These aren't huge beds. That could be 3 feet wide, bouncing out to 42, 44 inches, coming back to 3, maybe a nice little boxwood hedge, colorful flower garden. Bounce your foundation beds out. That's typically the first thing we do in a landscape renovation. If it's a 70s, 80s, even a 90s landscape sometimes, they're just not big enough. You notice how these, here's a nice little place for the arbor. You walk underneath. You notice how I like to kick them out. It depends on the height of the house. I'll start the thing at 6 feet if it's a beautiful big 2-story home. I need 6 feet off as the minimum off the side of that house so that I can start getting small trees and shrubs in there of the proper scale. So I like to kick it out. Now you kick it in. Now you notice how it's wider off the rear corners. Useful for something. Both of these, yeah, I have a laser pointer. They're wider off the back corner. That allows me to plant taller, broader material, allows you to plant broader material off of the rear corners of the house at the proper distance, so that as you look at the house from the street, the landscaping has a tendency to flow up and around the home. Remember our swing set? It's still there, but swing sets, dog kennels, compost bins, gazebos, fountains, bird baths, benches, these all would serve you so much better if they are pushed from the lawn area up into the concept line. There's the child's play area. Now I can fill it with mulch. I could have added a sandbox. I've actually made the backyard bigger. Now we have room to set up a badminton court throw the baseball around. And when I'm mowing my lawn, I'm not having to stop and clip and take extra maintenance time around all of these disparate objects. So you start seeing it this way, and there, all right, the compost bin up and back in that corner. Beautiful place for a bench. The bird bath. Maybe my bench goes there. Artwork, sculpture, these things. You will always see the little areas from the big area. And it's not going to be in the middle of your lawn. Blunder 6. We don't use enough shrubs and small trees. Again, we used to. You look at some of the old, beautiful, Dellwood and White Bear Lake areas, and there aren't a lot of original landscapes left in Kenwood or any of the areas like that. But even in South Minneapolis, there are some nice ones that are left. We used to use small trees and shrubs, and we don't anymore. We're building these brick starter castles across America, and they look like a dollhouse sitting on a pool table, you know? The landscaper comes in, little ball, little ball, little ball, little ball, and these things just jut out. What's missing? Small trees and shrubs. Even in an older suburban rambler, a lot of our suburban areas, you've got 40, 50, 60-foot tree canopies. Your turf grass, 2 inches, 3 inches. Perennials are useful, 12 inches, 18, 24. You get them up into that 36 range, some of them up into the 40-inch range. What's missing from most landscapes? That stuff that grows 4 feet, 6, 7, 9, 13, 15, 22. That's the world of small trees and shrubs. Small trees, by definition, are those trees that only grow 25 feet or less. It includes all your glorious, pretty much your blooming trees, the crab apples, things like the red bud, dwarf forms of birch, which they have now, and other types of trees. The Korean sun pear and the blooming cherries, and it, of course, includes the entire world of dwarf conifers, those fabulous evergreens and the weeping varieties as well as the standard varieties that only grow 6, 8, 10, 12, 16 feet tall. These are the plants that are missing from most landscapes. These are what we need to do along the side of our house. Now here, this is the side of the garage. That's the garage. Why, curve it, fine, but why even just put in a 6-foot wide bed? If you've got enough room in the side lot, let's pull that concept line way out. Now I can plant a river clump birch alongside the house, or a beautiful pyramidal evergreen, and start getting material up at the right distance away from the house that's going to grow up and exceed the roof line and start breaking up the harsh vertical, horizontal, diagonal angles of the house. That is the goal of good landscaping, is to nestle the house in nature. How do you nestle a house in nature? You bounce out the foundation beds and you introduce a much higher use of small trees and shrubs. Blunder 5, we plant the wrong plant in the wrong place. You've already seen this one. Why did we have to prune up the spruce until we killed it? Previous homeowner planted it 5, 6 feet from the driveway. You can't plant a red pine at the corner of Lowell and Minnetonka Boulevard. Your native red, she wants to get about 30 feet wide. So how do you keep from falling prey to this? You ask the second question, because we're pretty good about the first one. We're getting ready. We're going to grow a perennial. We're looking for a shrub. We're going to plant a tree. We'll before we buy it, we'll know how tall it gets. How tall does it get? We'll ask, or we'll look at the planting. The question we forget to ask is, how wide does it get? And I see more homeowners goof up. And see, the thing is, it doesn't goof it up right away. 10, 15 years from now, you want to plant particularly evergreens, evergreen shrubs and evergreen trees. You want to plant with mature width. How wide does it get in 5 years? How wide does it get in 10 years? Is it a shrub or an evergreen that I can control the width? I'm willing to learn some pruning, shearing techniques. But plant in regard to mature width is just a gigantic blunder. Forgetting about width in the planting of even perennials sometimes. Okay, we're getting there. Blunder number 4, we get suckered into taking the easy way out. And this is the fault of the $36 billion gardening industry, which freaked out 10 years ago when you guys are all familiar with these things. You know, we're at Summit Investment. These graphs, you kind of want them ultimately to always be going like this. The gardening industry freaked out because their sales graph, this is adding up all of the plant nursery sales, garden products, even landscaping expenditures in America, started going like this. We peaked about 8 years ago. And gardening is still going strong. There will always be gardeners, but there are societal changes. We have baseball syndrome. We're not getting enough young fans, all right? And people are working on it. What the gardening industry did was freak out. And they decided, oh my goodness, you're a bunch of overworked, stressed out, attention deficit disordered fruit baskets. You have no time, no ability, no desire to learn how to garden, so we're going to dumb it down. And we are now witnessing the great dumbing down of gardening. You'll see it in ads like this. The garden in a box, of course. You see it up there. Our exclusive garden in a box makes it simple. Oh, how often you will see that word. Simple, easy, foolproof, time-saving. We got any, I'm a fisher person. Are there any golfers here? Yeah. Yeah, you know, I mean, especially if you're retired. Can you imagine you open up your new issue of Golf Digest and there's a full-page color ad about some new product or technique or a special a special golf trip or vacation or something, and the headline is "Spend less time playing golf." No, but that's what the gardening industry is doing. I love the subliminal headline, buy it, plant it, watch it grow. Oh, good, that's for me. You know, I'm such a dummy. I wouldn't want to learn how to garden. These are plant-by-number kits. They don't think you want to even pick the perennials. So they send you a box of the little tiny perennials and a planting guide. And you plant the 3 heuchera here, and then you plant the 5 astilbe there. It's like a paint-by-number kit, you know, that we all did, where one is blue, and you know, when you're done, you got a picture of a pirate ship. But have you learned how to paint? Have you advanced at all as an artist? They don't think you want to learn that because you're not smart enough to learn how to place plants. The amount of garden porn that comes at us every year, it just rolls in like thunder. Painted flowers, which came out of the Netherlands, including garden outdoor varieties, spangled and frackled. Luckily, that's kind of going away. Plastic everything, roll and grow, one of my all-time favorites. That's still available, late night TV. It's this kind of a waxy paper impregnated with annual seeds, and you just roll it out, water it, and it grows you this gangly little wildflower. I love, the ad even says, you don't get your hands dirty. You know, garden without get your hands dirty. Plastic everything, plastic and faux stone. This is a plastic edging product I saw at a trade show. And the press release said, you know, looks and feels like real stone. No, it looks and feels like really cheap plastic. Comes in a box. It's flat on the bottom, flat on the side, so you can just stack it together. It's faulty advertising because in the glamour shot here, they don't show the big flat head 14-inch spike you got to pound down the front of it, the top of it, so it doesn't blow away in the wind, and so it'll support the soil, you know. And they're selling us a product here that's going to lower real estate values in a trailer park and trying to tell you that this is the way to garden. You can't take the easy way out. This homeowner did not take the easy way out. This is in northeast Minneapolis. This is on Polk. And you're looking at about a half, if not 2/5 of a small northeast Minneapolis city lot, completely done by the homeowner. The front yard is terraced in cobblestone and is gorgeous. There's not a speck of lawn in the thing. The side yards are beautiful. We photographed, this ran for 10 pages in Better Homes and Gardens. And he didn't take the easy way out, and neither should you. You got to go out at night. You got to steal cobblestones. You've got to, you know, go out and get some. You might have to buy Mexican beach pebbles. You probably have to go out and get a stone bench. You can't slip something into that equation made from recycled milk jugs. I try to impress upon my audiences, use natural materials. You want to think in terms of plants and earth and organic mulch and wood and stone and iron and clay and water and fire. You just want this organic oomph to rise up from your landscapes. Blunder 3, we use too few container structures, art, and other non-plant materials. Very much noticeable in the Midwest. As I travel, when I'm up and speaking or traveling in the Pacific Northwest, it's almost too much. The artwork, the incredible accessorizing. The East Coast, there's always going to be nice placement. The Midwest, and it's particularly Minnesota, it has something to do with, I think, the Swedes and the Norwegians and the, you know, like, ooh, I can't put a piece of art. It might say something about me, you know. Someone will know something about me if I do. No. Accessorizing your landscape, that's the fun stuff. Once the plants are in the ground, once the design's been created, now you get to have fun, because now you get to accessorize and decorate the landscape with the same intent as you use inside the home. Obviously, I'm talking about containers. I call containers the throw pillows of exterior design, and that's what they are. You fling them gaily throughout the landscape, dots of color and texture that we use, the bowls of white impatiens underneath the shady oak tree. Don't just cluster containers up to your house. You want them, you know, a lovely bowl at the entrance to a garden pathway, a beautiful, colorful container in the backyard. Just a shot of some of my containers in my home. Window boxes, same thing. It's just a simple garden accessory. It pulls the garden up to the house. You buy art, you buy sculpture for your home's interior. Now invest in art and sculpture, and we start placing it throughout the landscape. And some photos of just various cool. If it isn't a plant, it's an accessory. So just some shots. This was at Homer, Alaska. I spoke several summers ago. I spoke up in Homer, and I went on fabulous garden tours up in Alaska in the summer. It's short. Have you been? Yeah, it's short, but the gardens in Alaska are hilarious. Benches, seating areas. These are simply functional furniture pieces. Now think what we've learned already today, folks. Here's the concept line. The homeowner, and this was done by the homeowner, has pushed the accessory into the concept line, and then they changed the flooring. So now you're walking on turf and you transition onto stone as you access a seating area. That's no different from an area in your home where you're walking on carpeting and you transition onto a wood floor or a tile floor as you enter a different functional area of your home. And obviously fountains, detached walls, and I'm talking about arbors and trellises, stone walls, benches, changing up the floorings. In this instance, of course, the whole garden room concept of creating an individual, in this case, kind of a sunken meditative garden. Boulder outcroppings. It's not a plant. I call it an accessory, and I love using boulder outcroppings. In a design, it gives us different colors, different textures in which to bounce off, play with plants. This is that fabulous, I use this a lot, this is from Hibbing. That's that incredible taconite boulder that they harvest now in the mining process up in Hibbing. Just a magnificent stone, and then you can get hooked on stone as I did, and there you go. But and of course we're going to accessorize and decorate our outdoor entertainment and living areas, our decks, our patios. They can be accessorized the same way and the same intent as we accessorize indoors. And then finally, on this topic, the concept of the garden ruin. I was on garden tours in the Pacific Northwest, and a beautiful, beautiful private property where they had, the backyard was wooded and there was a natural slough there. They were blessed with a beautiful little green pond, and there was a trail around it. And years before, they had taken this terracotta urn and kind of abandoned it. They had just smooshed it down into the shoreline. So now you're walking this little woodland path around the pond, and as you turned the corner, that was the view that was presented to you. A very effective garden ruin, which is a simple form of garden accessory. All right, we're almost there. This one's very quick, but it's so important I make it number 2. We don't test, correct, and amend our soils. I remember so well at the University of Minnesota, my professor, we were getting ready to launch into the study of soil, soilology as we called it, and he said 85% of the problems that homeowners have with getting stuff to grow, relates to their soil. 85% of your, if you're having problems with stuff, it's your soil. Unless you're blatantly planting a screaming full sun plant in desolate shade, I'll guarantee you. And let me put it to you this way, because you folks have, a lot of you have gardened for many years and you're experienced. But if you know your property, maybe you probably already know. You're living in Invergrove Heights. You know that you've got Potter's Clay, Mendota. You know the various neighborhoods. So maybe you already know that you've got to amend your soil. But if you are having trouble getting stuff to grow, I highly recommend a soil test. And don't take the easy way out. Don't go to the nursery and get the little do-it-yourself pH kit. You really want to go to the University of Minnesota. Has a beautiful soil lab. If you're not familiar, I should flash it up there, but I didn't put it down for this talk. But here's a website that is just invaluable, and it's so easy. It's www, of course, extension.umn.edu. And that is the extension.umn.edu. That's the University of Minnesota's extension service. Click on gardening. And it opens up now. You've been opened up to 160 years of University of Minnesota horticultural research and experience. They have a search bar in there. You can access the soil lab, the soil testing information. Costs you about 25 bucks. If you're having any difficulty, get a decent soil professional lab or a University of Minnesota laboratory soil test. And the good thing is, of course, they send the results back to you within a couple of weeks. And all the information's there. The PDFs, how to do it, where to get the stuff, where to send it. Don't worry, all those questions are answered. And then in about a week to 10 days, you get a full report back on your soil. And then, of course, they don't leave you hanging. It tells you this is what we recommend you do to fix this. And then you get the phone number for the soil lab. So any questions, anything, the University of Minnesota exists to help you free of charge with the exception of the initial fee. You can also access your master gardeners. These are many, many things that the University of Minnesota, my alma mater, offers you free of charge as a part of University of Minnesota Extension. So extension.umn.edu. Brings us all the way to number one. It surprises people. But this is her. What's the biggest mistake we make as gardeners? We design and plant garden beds based on flower color combinations. Now people look at that and they say, well, wait a minute. How can that be a mistake? How else do you do it? There's books written on the subject of different bloom color combinations. And yes, there are. And there are those useless color wheels that are in the back of every beginning book. And the Star Tribune or whatever your favorite, the Pioneer Press, or in the spring, they're always going to have, they'll have one article on dazzling new bloom color combinations. It's wrong. It's all completely wrong. The nursery industry sells you color. They sell you flowers. So I'm interviewing this woman quite a few years ago now for an article in Better Homes and Gardens. She had single-handedly, this is a home on over in St. Paul, kind of in down near the river, but kind of in the Summit area, not on Summit. But she single-handedly had created one of the most absolutely jaw-dropping, gorgeous landscapes you have ever seen. I mean, and we're doing an article and a photo shoot for it for Better Homes and Gardens. She'd done it completely on her own. She bought the house. She said she stared out windows for 3 years. And she was also getting ready to retire and open up some time to do it. So I'm just raving to her about it, but I'm saying, what is your secret? What do you know? Why is everything so perfect? When you look up close, when you look midway, when you look from far, virtually 4 seasons out of the year, this is the most incredible landscape. What's your secret? Finally, she looks at me and she says, I place every plant based on contrast between the size, shape, and color of the leaves, she said. Color of bloom is secondary, she said to me. Color of bloom is secondary. And she had hit it right on the head. If you love perennials, perennials have leaves. Leaves have size, shape, color, texture. It is learning to purchase and place plants so that you create tapestries of foliage color and diversity that you will automatically elevate all manners of your landscapes, even your perennial gardens. It's all about foliage contrast and creating pictures and snippets. And get out to the shrub nurseries this spring. Take a look at the kaleidoscope of colors from light green, middle green, dark green, the soft yellows, the golds, blue leaves, pink, reddish-leaved plants, variegated leaves. That's a scouting shot. That's actually Pacific Northwest. That one's a close-up of my garden. Perennial shrub tree. Alchemilla mollis, lady's mantle. One of my favorite evergreen shrubs in the world, Euonymus Cannondale gold. That's the shrub. Dwarf blue spruce. Boom, boom, boom. It is learning to place plants based on foliage. So this was a client's garden. I had just finished. This is in Bryn Mawr. And I did the stonework. They had a hill, so we terraced it with stone walls. And it was dappled sunlight in the morning with a bit of direct sun midday. And I'm sitting there, brand new garden bed, and I'm planting it. And people are walking by with their baby. It's Bryn Mawr, if you know the area, strollers and biking. They're going, oh, isn't that pretty? Oh, isn't that lovely? Well, nothing's in bloom. They're just responding to my use and mimicry of form, popping my yellows, popping my silvers, dotting my purples. I said, well, thank you very much. It should be lovely when it blooms, too. So if it works for perennials, does it work for small trees and shrubs? Of course it works for small trees and shrubs. This is actually a Zone 7 shot. This is the University of British Columbia Botanical Garden, but it's just you can create this a million different ways in Minnesota. Rhododendron, you can see, now it's a big one because it's West Coast British Columbia, but that dirty, kind of a leathery, heavy leaf. What did they plant next to it? Just the sprightliest little light green feather duster foliage because they wanted to create that strong foliage contrast. It's all about foliage contrast. Bloom is overrated. You can have a bloom palette. You want to have shrubs or perennials. I want stuff that blooms in white and pink and blue and gold. That's fine. But don't go out and buy white, pink, blue flowers. You want to get the coolest perennials with light green, middle green, dark green, the purple foliage perennials, the reddish foliages, the blue, the silvers, the golds, the variegated, that happen to bloom in those colors. Because when the bloom is gone, how long do perennials bloom? And when perennials bloom, hallelujah. But that's just icing on the cake. How long do they bloom? 3 weeks? The length of perennials that blooms longer than 3 weeks is about that long. If you're hanging in there going, oh, my garden's gorgeous when the tall phlox blooms, yeah, how does it look for the 5.5, 6 months that the tall phlox isn't in bloom? You start to create gardens based on foliage and form, contrast in plant form, you will automatically elevate your gardens and your landscapes up into higher and higher levels of beauty. That is the secret to landscape design, and that is the secret to creating beautiful, beautiful gardens. The secret to hanging out with me, if you ever want to join me at my quite famous website, it is renegadegardener.com. It's one of the oldest, most widely linked, independent, non-commercial gardening sites on the internet. I've got a fairly regular readership and people chirping in, emailing from about 12 countries. And it's renegadegardener.com. I update it on or around the first of each month with all new articles. There's a bunch of clicks. There's fun stuff. You click on the Don't Do That button or click on the Myth of the Week is another good one. If you click on the Design button, which is a prominent button on the left side, go to renegadegardener.com, click on Design. Well, every button opens up article after article after article, most of them with photos that I've written over the years. But if you scroll down alphabetically, you'll come to one called Top 10 Gardening and Landscaping Blunders, which is going to recap what we discussed here today. But I would just, again, I want to thank the nice folks at Summit for inviting me to be here, and I want to thank you for giving me your rapt attention. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.